So you want a thicker and wider back. And so your back is made up of 3 parts. It's made up of the upper traps and rear delts. The middle back is made up of the middle traps, the infraspinatus, the teres major and minor, the rhomboids, the lower traps and lats, and the lower back is made up of the erector spinae. And so the upper traps, what they perform is scapular retraction, but so does the middle and lower traps. But either one of the 3 can be emphasized depending on how you retract your scapula. And so for the upper traps, you need to retract your shoulder blades basically in an upwards angle, and with the middle traps you need to retract your shoulder blades in like a parallel vertical neutral angle basically, and the lower traps need to be retracted, needs its scapula retracted at a downwards angle. And the exercises which are able to emphasize it specifically for the upper traps would be shrugs, and for the middle traps, basically any kind of row will work, including bent over barbell rows, and you could also do the same with dumbbells, chest supported rows, T-bar rows, face pulls that will most likely emphasize the upper traps. And basically just any other row where you're just basically retracting your scapular back. And for the lower traps, the exercises which best emphasize it would be trap raises and scapular pull-ups, but I think scapular pull-ups will be better because of the fact that it will train you to but I think scapular pull-ups are better because it will actually properly train you to be able to perform a pull-up and actually oh crap. But I think scapular pull-ups are better because of the fact that it will properly train the lower traps, as well as also train you to be able to hold yourself up on a pull-up bar, as well as prepare you to be able to do pull-ups. And the rhomboids, they don't need to be targeted directly because they also perform scapular retraction. And you could if you want to, but it isn't necessary to actually do, as it performs the exact same movement as both the upper, middle and lower traps. And now in order to get your back wider, the kind of muscle you should be targeting are the lats and the teres major, and they perform shoulder extension, or basically bringing your elbow from out in front of you or out to the side and driving your elbow closer to your hip. And when you drive it closer to your hip, it will activate the lats as well as also the teres major and minor. But both the teres major and minor, they can be emphasized a bit when you do wider than normal grip pulls. However, I wouldn't recommend doing them as it could put a huge risk of strain on your shoulder, and so instead the exercises which would be best to target the lats would be pull-ups, pull-downs, pull-overs, single arm dumbbell rows where you're rowing a dumbbell up to your lats, single arm lat pull-downs on a cable, and any other exercise that you could probably think of where you're just basically pulling your elbow down to your hip, as that is the function of the lats. And the teres major will also be trained in the exact same way as well, because it also performs shoulder extension and abduction, as well as also narrow grip barbell rows will also do it, as well as inverted rows will also train the lats in the exact same way. And so that's all the back exercises you really need in order to grow either width or thickness. Just do one exercise that prioritizes where you're retracting your scapula, and another exercise where you're pulling your elbow down to your hip, and you'll see the growth both in your lats and traps and those other muscles that I mentioned earlier, but except for the rear delts. And the rear delts, whilst it is a part of your back, it's mostly a part of your shoulder, and it performs shoulder extension like the traps do, like all three parts of the traps do. And the best exercises to do them would be reverse flies, dumbbell reverse flies on a bench, or to perhaps do rear delt flies on a machine like this here. Or you could use cables as well. And the rear delts, what they do is they extend your shoulder at a 45-degree angle, because that is the way of how the rear delts are aligned, and so it would be best to retract your shoulders, extend your shoulders at a 45-degree angle. And finally, we're on to the erector spinae, and whilst it is technically part of your back, it isn't ideal to train them on a back day or on upper body day, as the reason being though is because they get incredibly fatigued on leg exercises, including squats, deadlifts and RDLs. And so I'd recommend that if you are going to train this muscle, the erector spinae, I'd recommend training it on a leg day. And I'd say the best exercises of what you can do in order to train the erector spinae would be some sort of back extension, like this one here, or basically you could do them standing. And the point is what the erector spinae performs is it performs spinal extension, or basically extending your spine. And what you just have to do is to perform some sort of deadlift where you're not hinging your hips forward at all, and your hips are locked in place. And so with this exercise here, I'm locking my hips in place by simply bringing the pad up to hip height, and if I was to bring it lower and bring it below hip height, then my hips would be moving forward and I'd be targeting a lot more glutes and hamstrings, and that is not what I'm aiming for, and I want to build a bigger erector spinae. So I bring the pad up to hip height, and you can do the same with RDLs, but yet again, just make sure you're locking your hips in place and not moving your hips whatsoever. Or you could do Zerch deadlifts as well, and target your spine really hard. But the erector spinae, it will also be activated on squats and deadlifts as well, and it won't be the most necessary thing to train unless it is a serious lagging muscle group and you want to bring it up, or if you have a serious back injury and you want to train it in order to eliminate back pain. And that's it for today's video, and if you've enjoyed, make sure you either like or watch later so you can come back to this video and reiterate over what I just said, and subscribe for no more BS fitness advice like this.